Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. Disqualified for improper attire. 5 words that shattered a 16-year-old's dream. The old gym fell silent, save for the boy's ragged breathing as he stood frozen on the mat. The single, worn gray shirt he owned, now a badge of shame under the fluorescent lights. Coach Miller stared at his clipboard, refusing to meet anyone's eyes while the tournament director's voice echoed through cheap speakers. Parents shifted uncomfortably in metal bleachers. Nobody spoke up. Nobody ever did in Westridge. Not for kids from the east side. Not for kids like Aiden Collins. Outside the gymnasium doors, a black SUV pulled up. Inside, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson checked his watch. The championship trophy sat beside him, gleaming gold against black leather. He was right on time for the ceremony, but had no idea he was about to deliver something far more valuable than metal and marble. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. Aiden's shoulders slumped as he stepped back from the center of the mat. 6 months of dawn practices before school. Countless hours throwing himself against practice dummies while classmates went home. Nights falling asleep studying competition videos instead of subjects that wouldn't matter tomorrow. All erased because of a faded gray shirt that had seen too many washes in the laundromat. His only shirt. "Rules are rules, son," the director said without looking up from his clipboard. 3 matches from finals. 3 matches from the scholarship scouts who only watched championship bouts. The director adjusted his red tournament jacket, the school logo crisp against expensive fabric. "We have standards here. Can't make exceptions or everybody starts breaking rules." Coach Miller took half a step forward, then stopped. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The mortgage was late. His wife's medical bills piled up at home. The director was on the school board. "Aiden," he finally managed, voice barely audible. "Go, change. Maybe someone has a spare uniform." But everyone knew. In this district championship, there were no spares. Every other team had matching warm-ups, custom headgear, parents who coordinated spirit wear. Aiden had come alone on the city bus. His opponent, a boy whose father owned 3 car dealerships, smirked from his team's bench, already mentally advancing to the next round. The small crowd whispered. Phone cameras captured the moment. Somewhere, a girl laughed nervously. Aiden's vision blurred as he clutched his headgear, knuckles white. A single tear escaped before he could stop it, leaving a trail of shame down his cheek. Outside, Dwayne Johnson stepped from his vehicle, rolling his shoulders under a perfectly tailored suit. This wasn't his first school appearance, usually a quick in and out. Smile for photos. Say something inspirational. Remind kids to believe in themselves. His publicist had arranged this stop months ago. Local kid makes good, returns to honor the next generation. Standard PR, the usual script. He pulled open the heavy metal door, trophy under one arm. The familiar smell hit him immediately. Sweat, rubber mats, floor wax. Smells that had shaped his own youth. The sounds too, squeaking shoes, murmured conversations, the hollow echo of announcements bouncing off gymnasium walls. But something was wrong. The atmosphere felt charged, uncomfortable. Johnson paused in the doorway, eyes narrowing as he surveyed the scene. A boy with slumped shoulders standing alone, a circle of adults looking anywhere but at the child, and an unmistakable tableau he'd seen too many times before. Power being used to crush rather than lift. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. Aiden turned away from the mat, each step leaden as he headed toward the exit. The tournament director was already announcing the next match, reality shifting forward without him. From the corner of his eye, he caught his reflection in the trophy case glass. Faded shirt, secondhand shoes, the face of someone who didn't belong. Who would never belong? A hand touched his shoulder. "Excuse me, what happened here?" The voice was deep, familiar somehow. Aiden looked up into the face of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. His brain short-circuited. This couldn't be real. The actor stood nearly a foot taller than him, presence filling the space between them. The trophy gleamed under his arm. I got disqualified," Aiden mumbled, face burning with humiliation. "My uniform isn't regulation." Johnson's eyes moved over the boy's worn gray shirt, understanding dawning instantly. He'd grown up with little himself, had worn the same clothes days in a row, knew what it meant when a kid showed up without proper gear. "What's your name?" Johnson asked quietly. "Aiden Collins, sir." The gymnasium had fallen completely silent. Every eye watched the unexpected interaction between the disqualified nobody and one of the most famous men on the planet. Johnson set the trophy down on a nearby bench and straightened to his full height. The celebrity aura that normally surrounded him shifted into something else, something harder, more primal. The former wrestler's eyes scanned the gymnasium until they locked on the tournament director, who suddenly seemed very interested in his clipboard. "Who's in charge here?" Johnson's voice carried through the gym without effort, trained by years in arenas much larger than this school gym. The director stepped forward reluctantly, plastering on a smile. "Mr. Johnson, what an honor. I'm Director Phillips. We're so grateful you could—" "Why is this young man being disqualified?" Johnson interrupted, one hand still resting on Aiden's shoulder. Phillips swallowed visibly. "Well, there are uniform regulations that all participants must follow. It's in the rule book. Page 17, Section B. All competitors must wear approved—" "I didn't ask about page 17, Johnson said, voice deceptively calm. "I asked why this specific athlete is being prevented from competing when he's clearly worked hard enough to reach semifinals." Phones appeared everywhere now, recording. A parent whispered, "Holy shit," loudly enough to echo. Someone else muttered, "That's The Rock." Aiden stood frozen, unable to process what was happening as The Rock, the actual Rock, stood beside him like a mountain of controlled anger. Director Phillips cleared his throat. "Mr. Johnson, with all due respect, rules exist for a reason. We can't make exceptions just because—" "Because what?" Johnson's eyebrow raised in the expression millions had seen in his films. "Because he doesn't have the money for fancy gear. Because he showed up alone. Because making an exception might teach these kids something more valuable than blind rule following." Coach Miller finally found his voice. "The boy's our best wrestler, Mr. Johnson. Hasn't lost a match all season." Johnson nodded slowly, never taking his eyes off the director. "So, he's being punished for his circumstances, not his abilities." It wasn't a question. Phillips flushed red. "Now wait just a minute. That's not fair. I don't make the rules. I just—" "Life isn't fair," Johnson cut in, voice hardening. "Trust me, I know. But there's a difference between life being unfair and people making it unfair." He looked around the gym, taking in every uncomfortable face. Sometimes all it takes is one person with the courage to stand up and say, "No, this isn't right." One person to give someone else a fighting chance. The silence was absolute now. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold its breath as The Rock removed his suit jacket and handed it to Aiden. "Hold this for me, would you? This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk." Johnson unbuttoned his crisp white dress shirt, revealing the t-shirt underneath. With deliberate movements, he pulled the white shirt off and held it out to Aiden. "Would this meet regulation standards, Director Phillips?" Phillips stared, mouth working silently. "It's clean. It's white. I believe that's what page 17 requires, correct?" Johnson's voice remained level, but carried an unmistakable edge. Aiden looked at the outstretched shirt, easily worth more than his entire outfit, and shook his head. "I can't take your—" "Yes, you can," Johnson said firmly. "Everyone here is about to learn something important about what victory really means. But first, you need to finish what you started." A woman in the bleachers stood up, clapping slowly. Then another parent joined. Within seconds, the small crowd erupted into applause and cheers. Coach Miller wiped something suspiciously like tears from his eyes. Across the mat, Aiden's opponent shifted uncomfortably, no longer smirking. "Well, Director?" Johnson asked, still holding out the shirt. "Does this satisfy your requirements, or should we discuss this further?" The way he said "further" suggested that option wasn't advisable. Phillips looked desperately around for support, but found none. The parents, even those from affluent families, watched with expectation. Several had phones recording. This moment would live online forever. "I suppose that would be acceptable," he finally conceded. Johnson nodded once, then turned to Aiden, lowering his voice. "Take the shirt, kid. But more importantly, take this moment. Remember it. Sometimes life knocks you down, and sometimes people try to keep you there. The real champions are the ones who get up anyway." Aiden's hands trembled as he accepted the shirt. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," he whispered. "Dwayne," he corrected with a wink. "Now go get ready. You've got a match to win." As Aiden headed toward the locker room, Johnson turned back to address the gym. His voice, perfected through years of WWE promos, filled every corner of the space without needing a microphone. "I was invited here today to present a trophy, but trophies aren't what make champions. I've won plenty. Most sit in boxes now. What lasts isn't gold or marble. It's the moments that forged you. The times you faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable and found the strength to push through." Johnson scanned the faces watching him. Students, parents, coaches, officials. Many had phones raised, capturing every word. "I grew up with $7 in my pocket, evicted from apartments, wearing the same clothes days in a row. But I was lucky. I had people who saw beyond my circumstances to my potential. Not everyone gets that chance." He turned toward the locker room door where Aiden had disappeared. That young man wasn't asking for special treatment. He was asking for a fair shot. And that's something every one of us deserves, no matter where we come from, what we're wearing, or how we got here. Johnson's gaze landed on Aiden's opponent, who couldn't meet his eyes. True victory isn't just about beating someone else. It's about rising above limitations, especially the ones others place on you. It's about integrity, character, the stuff that doesn't fit in a trophy case. The locker room door opened. Aiden stepped out wearing Johnson's white shirt, nearly swimming in the fabric but tucked in neatly. The crowd erupted in cheers. Even students from opposing schools stood applauding. Johnson nodded to him, a gesture of respect between warriors. "Now," Johnson said, voice carrying over the noise, "I believe we have a tournament to finish." He picked up the championship trophy, examining it thoughtfully. And regardless who takes home this gold, I think we all know who already won something more valuable today. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Three hours later, Aiden stood on the first-place podium, still wearing Johnson's shirt now damp with sweat and effort. His final match had been close, perhaps the hardest of his career, but something had changed inside him. Each time he felt like giving up, he remembered Johnson's words, remembered the moment someone had finally seen him. Johnson stepped forward, trophy in hand. Cameras flashed as he presented it to Aiden, whose face showed exhaustion, disbelief, and something else, a newfound confidence that transcended the moment. The two shook hands, Johnson leaning in to say something only Aiden could hear. Behind them, Director Phillips watched uncomfortably, knowing the story was already spreading through social media. Parents who had sat silently earlier now approached him with questions about uniform assistance programs for low-income athletes. Several offered to start a donation fund for equipment. Later, outside the gymnasium, Johnson waited for his driver while Aiden tried to return the shirt. "Keep it," Johnson said, waving away the attempt. "I've got plenty." "I can't ever repay you," Aiden said, clutching the trophy. Johnson smiled. "Yes, you can. Not to me, to whoever comes next. Someday you'll see someone else facing a barrier that shouldn't exist. Remember today. Be the person who steps up." A small crowd had gathered nearby, respectfully distant but watching. Johnson's security looked anxious about the delay, but he ignored them. This mattered more than schedules. "I have something else for you," Johnson said, pulling a card from his pocket. "My agent's contact. There's a training program I sponsor for promising athletes. Full scholarship, housing included. It's competitive, but after what I saw today, I'd say you've got what it takes." Aiden stared at the card like it might disappear. "Why me?" "There are better wrestlers." Johnson placed a hand on his shoulder. This was never about wrestling. It was about refusing to stay down when the world tells you to. That's rare. That's what separates champions from everyone else. As Johnson turned to leave, Aiden called after him. "The shirt, it's going in a frame, not the trophy." Johnson grinned. Good choice. 3 weeks later, the video hit 50 million views. Comments flooded in from around the world, people sharing similar stories of obstacles, of small moments that change trajectories. Celebrities and athletes launched a "See Me" campaign for underprivileged youth in sports. But in a small apartment across town, the most important change was much simpler. Aiden Collins stood straighter, looked people in the eye, started each day by touching the framed white shirt hanging on his wall, a reminder that victory isn't gold or glory. It's refusing to be defined by anything except your own heart. It's standing tall when the world expects you to shrink. And sometimes, it's a single moment of kindness that rewrites what's possible. Wow, what a story. If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.